Happy Monday, homeschool mamas. Tea with me? Okay, sparkling water, that's all I got right now. It was so fun to engage you yesterday on the discussion of overwhelm because apparently it was overwhelmingly positive. Everyone has been overwhelmed throughout this year. So why is it fun? Because listening to your answers is teaching me a whole lot. My experience of overwhelm isn't the same as yours, but I have a Grappling with Overwhelm PDF up in the link in my bio. It's popular for a reason. So I think I address about, 24 reasons that you could be grappling with overwhelm. And I have a big discussion actually on that on a separate webinar that I can actually send to you, but I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. In honor of my 50th podcast episode release this week, yay, 50! I am asking that if you give me a review of the podcast, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, let me know that you've given me a review and what your name is, and I will give you a free webinar about grappling with overwhelm. Also, if you've read my book, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, and you have also put up a review either on Amazon or Goodreads, then I'm also going to give you a webinar on grappling with overwhelm. Kind of a big topic. So off the top of my head, I am going to address some of the things that you shared this weekend about grappling with overwhelm. There's so many different reasons why we feel overwhelmed. Everybody's in a different boat on this stormy sea this year, and we're all having very wildly different experiences. Like I'm about to graduate my second daughter, and someone in here mentioned that she just got a surprise with her fourth baby. Yeah, that is a big one. Or I heard that somebody is moving, has to unpack. That might be the same mom. Can we all just stop and say a prayer for her? That is a lot. Okay, so have you wrapped up your homeschool year? Apparently everyone has not. Note to self, I actually usually finish up by the end of April. Now I'm talking about me engaging a child that's a bit younger, so I'm a little bit more, I'm talking more about younger kids. The older kids, they kind of have their academic schedules that are outside of what I'm doing anyways. But for me, I actually continued a whole month longer than I intended to. And I didn't actually remember that I did that. It was my son that said, "Hey mom, aren't we usually done by now?" So this morning, officially, he's just doing math. Okay, so have you wrapped up your homeschool year? It turns out that about 67% of you said, not yet. What was your biggest challenge this year? Oh, wow. Somebody gave me some amazing discussion points here. Like one of the biggest challenges is finding community. That is one of the most common things that I've heard this year. And it comes as no surprise since there's so many new homeschool families that have joined the ranks of the real homeschooling thing versus last year's pandemic, COVID, I don't know what that is, online schooling / living at home / being entertained at home / whatever that was. I don't mean that. I mean actually homeschooling, choosing to homeschool and creating a family environment that is conducive to learning on your own terms. That. There's still a lot of families that join that. And I'm guessing there's a couple here that are part of that group. And I want to say, first of all, welcome. And also, it isn't usually like when it was this last year. Usually, we're not worried about socialization either. Last year, everyone was wondering, how am I going to build community to create social contacts? Good question. We were all wondering that. And hopefully you're in a part of the world that is starting to transition into normal-ish. But in the meantime, if you have just joined the homeschool ranks or you're newer to it and you haven't found a community that really fits for you, yeah, that is a genuine homeschool challenge. One that I actually address on a post about loneliness and creating community on my website, Capturing the Charmed Life, and I also discuss it in here. And I have many different points that I would share in that, but biggest one that I would say is that though we feel alone, we're obviously not alone. 7 billion other people. We have to be authentic. We have to show up authentically, because if we want people to connect with the real person that's here, you're going to have to show up as the real person that's here, so that real people that might like you will actually like the real you. Because if you're not, they might actually connect with the person that isn't the real you, And you'll know that, and you won't feel connected to. Also, you're going to have to show up as your authentic you, which means you're vulnerable, that you're actually being honest about who you are. But, and here's another one. We didn't get to do a lot of traveling this last year, but I've done a lot of traveling in our homeschool life, and I actually got tired of it. No, truth be told, I'd be glad to do any kind of traveling at this point. But we can approach everybody that we meet like they are new travel experiences. And it's a really useful approach because that means that we're less judgmental of how they should be or how we think that they should be. Or frankly, we're less sticking them into a box and thinking, oh, she reminds me of my aunt so-and-so. And in reality, we allow ourselves to really listen to who these people are and get to know them a little bit more deeply than just making blanket assumptions about them. And it opens your world. It's kind of like going to another country and being able to travel to another country. If you're really listening to people, that's why I've loved this podcasting thing, is really hearing people, their heart, and their stories. Their stories are so interesting. Everyone's story is so interesting. And if we allow ourselves to really show up by listening to people, we'll discover that if we have that kind of heart for people, we can actually connect with almost anybody. Now, having said that, that's the other thing that I would say off the cuff, is we gotta be accepting of our reality that homeschooling is not a homogenous homeschool community. We all know this. When we get into homeschooling, we do it for different reasons. We're pretty independent, and as we do this, the longer that we do this, we are very independent. And we somehow expect, though, joining the homeschool ranks, that we've got this big old place that says, we're the homeschool group or the homeschool community. We should show up here every Monday at 8. Does that sound familiar? And we should join the groups that represent a homeschooling lifestyle. But reality, homeschool families are all very, very different. And so we have to actually show up independently and connect as independent, separate families that may even value very different things. And like I said, experience those people as though you're going on a vacation and you're just learning about somebody new or a different culture. Be open to it. And the last thing I'd say about community is that you are just really going to have to own who you are and be comfortable with who you are. Be comfortable with solitude, be comfortable with who you are as a person or how you homeschool or your homeschool dynamic or your family. Just accept it. And when you do that, you're actually way more accepting of other homeschool families. But I'm so glad you're here because this is a homeschool community as well. This is one that I welcome you to. And I know it's not the same as actually sitting in the backyard and hanging out together. But we'll do that next year if the retreat goes next summer in real time, not just virtual time. And if you're interested in a homeschool mama retreat, let me know. Okay, so the next thing that somebody had said about how to grapple with overwhelm was planning ahead of time. She wanted to plan ahead of time. And as a very dedicated planner, I am with you. There is a value to planning ahead of time, and do that for a couple years maybe, and then let it go. Because we plan all sorts of things for our kids, and it is really fun to write it all down, especially to get a day timer and have different colored pens for different kids and write down all the subjects we might want them to engage or the different books or curriculum that we have access to and want to share with them. Those are great ideas, and they definitely belong in your idea book. Reality, you cannot do them all. And when you tell yourself, but I bought it, so I have to do it, that is it's just not going to work for you. In fact, you're just setting yourself up for frustration. And your kids don't really find it fun if you're scheduling every moment of their day. Ask me how I know. So plan ahead of time and then let it go when it isn't working in that day. One mom said that her source of overwhelm is that she was a former teacher and she knows she needs to unschool herself. And amen, girlfriend. That is a story I've heard on repeat as teachers, that they find themselves disadvantaged because they think about an education in a very specific way. And the rest of us who weren't in an education program are maybe a little bit more advantaged, although we still were schooled. So we still think of an education in a very specific approach. And it usually involves a classroom and a brick and mortar school and a teacher and a whiteboard and all that stuff. And tests and grades. We don't have to do that. We can think outside the box about what an education is anyway. Because I'm a homeschool mom and I have definitely dabbled in Latin in my early classical homeschooling years, I learned that educato, the root word for education, means to raise up. I don't know that I'm pronouncing that right, but I do know that that's what it means. And educato, to raise them up, or to raise one up. To raise who? To raise a school system? No, to raise your kids. And I'm guessing that you don't have 450 kids or 1,600 or even just a classroom of 24. Well, maybe you do. But if you have just the regular amount of kids, which I think homeschool average is 4, but you can have 1 and you can have 18, as many kids as you have, your education is for those specific children, those kids. So how do you know what those kids need for an education? Well, I have an entire podcast dedicated to that discussion, and I could literally take the entire time on this live discussing that. But ultimately, mostly it's about just your kids and who your kids actually are. So if that's the case, then how do we unschool ourselves? Well, we just have to start seeing the actual child that is right in front of us and actually engaging that child. And when we do that, we actually delete all sorts of activities and curriculum and expectations of ourselves and our homeschools, right? It's actually easier to do things when your kid is on board. A lot easier. Okay, so getting a consistent rhythm going. This is my thought around that. I am one of those people, capital type A people, that always wants to do everything, and I am doing a lot, and I always probably will be, but I have learned that if I'm really unhappy in it, something's got to give. Also, time blocking. First, I want to know, what is it that I want to actually include in my homeschool day? Like, what do you want to actually do? What's important to you? Know that if you're just beginning this, it will change over time. In fact, it'll always change over time, partly because your priorities shift, life happens, your kids grow up, they have different priorities, they actually show you who they are and what they're all about, and you start to include that more because that's also an easier way to approach family life and homeschooling. But you get to decide what you're putting in your days. That's welcome to homeschooling. It's the beauty and a freedom of homeschooling. So you get to put what's in it, but you might be surprised, like me, that sometimes whatever you planned takes a lot longer than you thought it would. I tried to fit in all sorts of unrealistic things. And I tried to do the Susan Wise Bauer, her approach to classical homeschooling. And I did that with my 8 and my 6-year-old, while I also had a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old on my lap. And so I can tell you from experience, not wise. But I learned that there was way too much on my plate when I started to time block. And when I time blocked, that meant I actually wrote down how much time I actually spent doing everything, and I realized it was wildly unrealistic what I'd expected to do, especially because there was literally no space for me. That's why this entire account exists, because I learned that I had to put in white space for me. And also, the kids didn't want to do it. So guess what? It made it a whole lot harder. And there was no opportunity or no time even for their squabbles or complaints or their frustrations, which you should also factor that in. There's always going to be a necessary emotional energy required for that stuff. That's going to stay with you the entire time. So you're going to create a consistent routine by really just deciding, what is it that you really want to do every day? Be realistic about when kids actually wake up in the morning. Or if you're not sleeping through the night, be realistic about how on the ball you really can be. And be gracious with yourself. There is no black and white perfect way to approach this thing. It's not even required. Why are we even doing that? We're enjoying homeschooling, which means that we get to enjoy all the freedoms of homeschooling. So let's definitely capture the freedoms of homeschooling. One of your favorite memories this year was that you discovered on accident that one of your kids, your middle child, had discovered how to read. And I just, yay, that's so exciting. Really so exciting. I had one of those too. And I was like, wait, what? You're 3. Okay, but you didn't learn phonics. I didn't teach you phonics. You can't read. Oh wait, you already know how to read. That's really exciting. And it also teaches you that kids are on their own schedule. With or without you, they learn. Another happy memory is, well, you said too many, but many of the car ride laughs and discussions. That is interesting. I want to know where you were driving, because except for going to virtual grocery shop pickup, I wasn't doing very much. So that sounds like fun. But in normal years, I did a whole lot of driving, and there was all sorts of discussions. And really, there have been all sorts of discussions all year long, all 15 years long. I'm going to be interviewing my 18-year-old daughter who is graduating homeschool high school in, June 19th is when we're going to have a big graduation day for her. And I am going to have a discussion with her, my final, maybe my second last podcast episode this year. And it's going to be interviewing her and her homeschool experience. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so do you have a swimming pool? Okay, so somebody says that they have middle of the day swim breaks for homeschooling. Okay, do you need a homeschool mom teacher? Tell me where you live. Seeing my oldest lead us into prayer each morning. There is something special about the oldest kid. I'll tell you, my 3-year-old, my oldest child was 3, when she would take up a few dollars to the cafe cashier and ask for her muffin and say, here's the money. And she was so cute doing it, and so independent and so grown up at 3. And the cashier would look at her and fawn over her and just say, oh, isn't that so sweet? You're so cute. And she hated that, because she's like, what is going on, lady? Just give me the muffin. I have the money. She was so independent, and she's shown so many signs of independence right from the get-go. Is it like TMI if I tell you she was actually conceived on Independence Day? So I know exactly how you feel when you see your oldest child, do something very independent and leading the other kids. And it's really helpful for you, actually. It does free up a lot of time. And it is so fun to watch. Write all those memories down. 100% everyone responded. Overwhelmed. Everyone is overwhelmed this year. 100%. Did you experience overwhelm? Yep, overwhelmingly so. Someone somehow has experienced overwhelm. Well, and there was one mom that said that her husband lost her job, is working on a startup without any pay yet, and a 4th baby that they didn't plan. Whew, that is a lot, and I'm rooting for you. Yes, that is going to be a lot. There are times in our homeschool lives where we really just have to accept that what's going on around us is too much. And it's okay to let go. Like, it really is okay to let go. That's not just one homeschool mom speaking to the other, but why not let go? What's the reason that we hold on so tightly at a time that is actually really difficult for us to hold on at all? Biggest thing I could tell you as one homeschool mom to another, you want to create mindful moments in your day to really check in with yourself and stop, take a couple deep breaths, just even for 10 seconds. I say schedule it in your screen, and when it goes off, then just stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, how am I doing? This is great. I love talking to you guys. Also, I think I left the sprinkler on outside, and it's like plus 28, so I'm wasting water here. I should get outside. I'm pretty sure that there's some errands that I need to, or things that I need to do outside with the dog and with the chickens, and I haven't checked the baby chick's water. And it's like going through that and then finally go, okay, where am I at? How am I feeling? Positive. This is a great day. Summer's here. My homeschool year is over. I'm really checking in with all you guys and really hearing where you're at, and it feels really cool to start really connecting in with you guys as a community. So this is how I do it, is have these quick moments in the day to check how you're doing. And note to self, if you know that you're having a challenging time at a specific time of the day, like arsenic hour, that's what I call it, around supper time usually. I know there's different ways of describing that, but it's a really tricky time. If your kids are little and you're the primary cook and the day is getting finished up, it's a big day, or it's a big time of the day. And so at that time, maybe that's the time that you need to just check in. Now, why does this work? I don't know. But there's something about trying to check in with your feelings and really just give a little self-compassion, or just give yourself some grace and just say, hey, how you doing? Are you feeling okay? Take a couple deep breaths, and it really does help you to continue on in the day. Okay, so last thing I'm going to say, because I could just stay here for a little while, and all the kids, my kids in the background, I've said, listen, okay, you guys, I need you to be quiet for about 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. But if you don't want to be quiet, it's okay, because you know that is not possible for kids to always stay quiet. And surely there's going to be slamming doors, and somebody's going to start arguing, or somebody's going to, something, you fill in the blank. And I know that you're accustomed to doing this while I'm on live, but you all know that I have real homeschooled kids, so I told them it's okay, you can do all of that stuff. So they know that I really am a homeschool mom. And the oldest one said, I see a reverse psychology there. And I went, yes, I hope it worked. Okay, so last thing, too many things at once, or too many things planned for one day, is what one mom said about feeling overwhelmed and the reasons she's feeling overwhelmed. Story of my homeschool life is about planning too much. I'm really, really good at planning. I can put a lot together and I can organize it all. I have an entire, not this book, but I have an entire journal filled with activities for every year of my entire homeschool experience for each child in different areas of interest. Like it could be different subject areas, or different curriculum things, or different places we want to go see. I've got tons of ideas like that. And thankfully, I've learned I do not have to put them all into practice this year. In fact, if they don't get put into practice before the last child is finished homeschooling, it's okay. Because my goal in an education is not to make my child not have gaps, not have to consult Google. I'm still expecting my kids are going to have to consult Google, and they won't be in competition with God. So it's okay. We can just let some of those things go. Your goal, whether you choose to accept it or not, is to actually enjoy the whole homeschool process. Okay, most days. But the goal is to enjoy it. If you're enjoying it, great. You're in your sweet spot. Keep going with it. And if you're not, let's just ask why. You're never going to find that sweet spot perfectly. So I'm not trying to tell you that you should feel bad when you're not, because life is life and you're not always going to feel like this is great. But most days should feel like, you're fulfilling your vision in this homeschool thing, and you're actually enjoying the freedoms that you have as a homeschool family. You're getting to do all the things that you want to do as a homeschool family. Okay, I'm going to stop there, because at this point, the kids are actually going to challenge what I just told you. So I hope that you and your kids have a good week. And if it's challenging, then I hope you can reframe things so that you can turn it into charms. I think Wednesday I'm going to go into a little greater discussion about grappling with overwhelm. If you've got comments, questions, other thoughts that you haven't mentioned in the Tea with Me section or thing yesterday, then put it down below and I'll address it on Wednesday. I've got 3 podcast episodes left. This Wednesday, I'm releasing my 50th podcast episode interview with Kara Anderson from the Homeschool Sisters. So much fun. So much fun. I'm so excited that this is the week that I get to release my 50th podcast episode. And so in honor of that, I'm asking you, if you're a regular listener or if you've listened to any of them, put a review up on your favorite place that you listen to the podcast. Or if you've read my book, Homeschool Mama Self-Care, Nurturing the Nurturer, you could also put up a review on Goodreads or Amazon. It really, really would mean a lot to me. It puts me in front of other people. And I want to create a community where we're nurturing the nurturers. Yeah, that's my goal. And I am so blessed by this first season of my podcast. I have met so many amazing homeschool mama mentors and encouragers from around North America. Can't say around the world, but around North America. It has been so much fun getting to know everybody and connecting with everyone right across the spectrum. From I don't even have a baby yet, I'm pregnant and I want to homeschool. Yes, I met that mom. And also somebody that had 13 kids and I got to chat with on the podcast. So it's been a super fun year, and I want to celebrate that 50th podcast episode. And when you do that, when you put up a review either of the book or the podcast, I'm going to send you a Grappling with Overwhelm webinar. And you'll have to give me your email for that, and I'll send it directly to you. Okay, so that's all I've got. I'm going to go get lunch. Let the kids know they can make a whole lot of noise. Have a good week.